Here we are, Real Recovery Talk. I am your host, Tom Conrad. In today's episode, we've got Benjamin B.
What's happening, everyone?
And we also have a gentleman by the name of Matt.
Hey, everyone. Hope everyone's well.
Oh, that was nice.
Got to.
Do you go by Matthew or Matt?
Matt's fine.
Okay.
So Matthew, my mother gave me because it means a gift from God.
Oh, well, that was nice too.
Yeah.
Hey, first things first. Thank you for tuning in on the podcast app, whichever one that you choose to use. Thank you for watching on YouTube. In the end, if you have any comments, questions, or concerns, you can always email us, info@realrecoverytalk.com. Again, it's info@realrecoverytalk.com. And ultimately, we want to help you turn your mess into your message. Right, Ben?
Yes, sir.
Right, Matt?
That's absolutely right.
All right. So let me just pave the way here. We were having an open house today. Ben and Destiny put it together, and I assisted in some capacity. And man, how many people do you think came through?
I don't know.
I got here right after it started, and I think there was an easy 45, 50 people here.
Yeah.
Easy.
It was a really good turnout.
We ran out of parking.
Definitely ran out of parking.
So, but anyways, we put a list out there to, have people. So it's a lot of people in the substance abuse industry, I suppose, if that's how we word it. So people could sign up if they want to come on the podcast and stuff like that. And then Ben and I will kind of go through the names and, see what works out, what doesn't, whatever the case. But anyways, Matt is here, and Matt, we've discussed having you on the podcast months ago, and for, whatever reason, things didn't line up. But Ben and I are just standing out in the gym, and we're like, hey, Matt's here right now. Why don't we just podcast now?
Yeah.
And so here we are.
In our field, scheduling is always an issue.
Always an issue.
Because with what we do, drug addicts and alcoholics do not say, oh, I'm going to decide to get sober between 9 and 5, and I'm going to schedule a time to make this call. Like, it's...
Yeah.
You got to be ready to drop whatever you're doing. Whatever you have scheduled, plan on that changing for
Always.
the day.
I wasn't supposed to be here today. I had a lunch planned, and they woke up sick and couldn't attend, and so pivot over to Rock, where I'd rather be than, and here we are.
Yeah. Well, hopefully your lunch date doesn't listen to this, because then they're going to hear that you'd rather be with us. And
I'm pretty sure I told her, actually.
Okay. You rub it in a little.
Yeah.
So Matt is, I'll let you share. What do you work for Lakeview Health?
I do. I work for Lakeview Health in Coral Spring, which is also our eating disorder program. But Lakeview itself is a dual diagnosis substance abuse treatment center located in Jacksonville, Florida. But we're also a gender responsive program. So we have two separate programs. Our females and our male patients never cross over. So we're really proud of that, because it allows us to get down to like the basics quicker. We've stripped drugs, alcohol, and the opposite sex away. So our goal is to try to eliminate distractions to get to the core of the person.
Wow. Yeah. Well, you verbalize that very well.
I've said it once or twice before.
Yeah.
But I believe it too, because it's really a neat program to watch, and it's our 22nd year.
Well, I want to get into the nitty gritty of that here in a second. Fun fact, Ben, I'm alumni of Lakeview Health.
I was going to bring that up. I wanted to know your association with it there, Tom.
Yeah. Lakeview Health, in my opinion, is a great program. And I've referenced Lakeview a few times because of the fact that I went there, So.
And Tom's a one and done.
One and done.
True.
He went to treatment one time. Mm-hmm. That was Lakeview Health, and he's still sober. So
my therapist was, her name is Irie. She's not there anymore. This goes back in 2010. So I know obviously a lot of things have changed, but changed for the better, I would say, So, all right, well, let's just get right into it. Matt, tell us about yourself.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. This is Matt. A little bit about me. I'm the baby of 7 kids. Grew up in a very small town in Ohio. Pretty good, upbringing, family, went to church. We did all of that, and I'm blessed to have a good family. And it's been a lot of work, right, to get the family back and really just try to figure out what happened from a family setting. But I didn't have really anything ever crazy happen in my life. Like, you hear the stories, you learn about people. For me, what I knew at a very young age, I had an insight I knew I was gay. Like I just knew in elementary school, I always laugh. Like I looked at guys' shoes and I liked them better than girls' shoes. But in my mind, that was like the earliest idea that, I was attracted to guys. And, I harbored that for my whole life. Like this is an elementary school. I didn't come out until my early 20s. And, I just felt like I was weak. I felt like I was broken. I had a father who was in the Marines and, a very masculine man. And I have two brothers that also went to the military. And none of that, I had no interest in that stuff. And my mother would always remind me that, like, I'm her special son and, like, God gave her what she needed in me. But, I knew inside, like, I thought I had this lie and it hurt. Growing up in church, my dad was born in 1940. It was just a different era then. You didn't talk about it. I know I had a gay cousin, and I know people would joke about him and say things. And like, I never wanted that to be me. So it kind of created like a bully in me in school. Like I would see other guys and I would bully them and tell people things about them that weren't true. And, we know why I did it, because it takes the focus off of me.
Yeah.
And I projected on somebody else. So, I believed in my heart I was broken and I was sick, and I didn't want to be this person. But I also knew I had this attraction, right? And it was a really, really hard thing, to deal with. Growing up in a small town, I didn't have anyone to turn to, and it created a lot. So once I had found, I'd always out of high school, I drank and did drugs and never, could always pick up, stop, never. Probably some concerns here or there. But when I found crystal meth, I found the drug that would grab me and ultimately shake me and do everything in its power really to kill me. And you know how it goes. At that time, with starting using crystal meth, I was diagnosed 2000 something, maybe call it 9 or 10, I was diagnosed as being HIV positive. And I just came out. Now I have a new diagnosis. My dad just died. Like, home is now very, very hectic. There's a lot going on. My dad was sick for a period of 10 years. He was a burnt victim in a bad explosion. So you can imagine 10 years of what life was like. He lived in a hospital bed and he was always dying. And so it was rough. Like I just felt alone and lost and had really didn't feel I had nowhere to go. So when I was diagnosed, I had just came off of my first, what we call drug run of crystal meth, and I enjoyed it. I started losing weight. I've always been a little husky guy, and I felt like I've arrived almost. Like the guys like me. They're now interested in me, and like I feel like I'm part of something. And not realizing it was none of that. It's just the circle I started keeping was not healthy. But I knew I was in that moral conflict because I believe majority of people in this world have instilled some kind of moral values. And I believe when you turn to addiction, you're in that constant conflict. And I believed the crystal meth created a place that I could take those morals and shove them down, but now I can be involved as a gay guy and be sexually how I want to be. And it wasn't truly until years later I learned what being a man is. And to me, it doesn't matter if you're a straight man, you're a gay man, or however you identify. A man is somebody that is in touch with their feelings. They care about other people. It's not about that who's the strongest and none of that. It's really how do you treat people? That to me is what makes a good human. But the drugs really allowed me to play, and it truly took me to a lot of dark places. That, for every sake and purpose, I was okay if I died.
I got a couple questions I want to talk to you about. Your dad being a Marine, and you said you had two older brothers that were in the military. Mm-hmm. Did they experience you while you were using crystal meth, or like how? I guess my question is, what was their response, or how did they act around you whenever, okay, not only you come out as gay, but you're also a drug addict. How was that received by them, and what did that do to you?
My oldest brother really never spoke to me again. He had some obviously challenges with it, not with the drugs, because he himself identifies as an alcoholic, and but his reaction was, we honestly probably just spoke a few years ago. We ran into each other, and it was civil, but like how I took it was I was in such a better place. Like, I've learned through therapy and working a 12-step program that is him. That it really has nothing to do with me. My other brother, he was cool. He really was. And he would make jokes, but that's like how we bonded. And when I told him, he's like, "That's cool, man. No worries." Is
that how it is still to this day?
For that piece, yes. In the last, I lost my mom January 4th, 2 years ago. And a lot had happened over the years with family relationships. Not so much as mine, because I've been removed by living in Florida and really focusing on myself and building a life. So the family, there's family stuff there. So the gay and the drug acceptance piece is there. There's just been a lot of other things that have happened that kind of keep some of us spread out. None of it really directly has to do with me. It's some siblings and parent stuff, that they never worked out. So I know that both my brothers are there if I would need them. I love them. I accept them. I learned to work, you learn to work a program, and you really try to apply it to your family. And I think the way it's different is I don't seek their approval. It is what it is. I am who I am. I accept them for their stuff. I just choose not to judge them, because I try to remember, I really believe everyone is really trying to do the best they can. Even to us, it may not look like that. I believe they are. So at the end of the day, if they're happy with who they are, I'm happy for them. But I don't need their approval. I don't hold my head down. I'm not ashamed of who I am or what I am or where I was. I'm very proud of those things, because I get to sit here today because of those things. They were a weapon I used against me, and I've turned them into a weapon to better me and also to be there for other people.
Wow.
It was a rough thing. I hated it. When I tell you, I hated the idea of being gay, and I felt, because I'm overly sensitive, very caring, my mom's baby, that's because I'm gay and weak. I learned through these years that those are some of my greatest attributes. Those are a gift from God. And to tell God that these gifts make me weak is, to me, just the opposite of what God is trying to give us. I had to recognize these are gifts.
Yeah.
They're not weaknesses.
What do you got, Ben?
I like that you brought up the measure of a man. We've talked about this just a few episodes ago. I referenced John Lovell, the Warrior Poet Society.
Yep.
And it really, like you said, it comes down to, I believe being a man is being able to be loving, be kind, but also being a protector and a defender,
Absolutely.
and capable of all those things, but having just a big heart and being able to be authentic and vulnerable. That is what a man is to me. But I have a question for you too. I don't know that this ever's come up on the podcast. And first and foremost, I want to thank you for bringing it up. You were open and honest about HIV diagnosis.
Yep.
And I'd like to get your perspective on that from when you found out, because in my mind, what I'm thinking right now is I've watched people going through the treatment process. One of the first things that happens in detox very often is they get an STD test, blood work done, etc., and they'll get that diagnosis and really struggle with hearing that. Many go right back out.
They go back out.
They
don't come back.
Correct. And I'm wondering your experience, your perspective with that. How did you get through that? What?
Yeah, so I'm the guy that I need you to confront me. I will be burning down inside, go very dark. And still this day, I struggle with that. I need people to say, "Hey, are you okay?" Or "You don't look good," or whatever that is, because then you just open the door. You gave me permission now to speak. And it's, I can still sit in silence, and suffer. So I knew you didn't just come from what I was doing and the choices I were making and the things I were putting in my body and the multiple partners I would have a day. Like, sex to me is its own drug, and I can still go on those tears. And the idea is not being fulfilled with shame, just being awareness. So when I went to get tested, I was having a lot of dry skin and extremely itchy. And I was going to urgent cares and I was getting prednisone shots and didn't think anything of it. But then I started getting like this wound in my leg that really was, starting big on the outside and it was just going in. And I knew something was wrong there. So I go to this urgent care and there's this new doc there, and she had just come from a community female clinic place, So the reason I say that is because I'd been seeing a lot of different doctors. She was the only person that looked at me and said, "Have you been tested for HIV?" And I said, "No, I haven't." She's like, "Would you be open to being tested?" And I said, "Yeah." And they sent me to the health department, and I went and they did this rapid test. I remember the guy's name. His name was Chuck. And this poor guy, that's his job. His job is to tell you yay or nay on this. And I remember sitting there, and there was a window, and I'm just sitting there, and him saying, "You see this line here, that normally takes some time, but that line normally will mean it's positive, and you still have time left on the clock, but you see what that says." And that was my first, word of, you have HIV, and but it was a relief because I knew, and this guy Chuck just said it. So like that door is opened. And I sat out there out the window for a period of time. It felt like forever. And he's like, "Well, we still have more we got to do." And they needed to do labs because they really needed to say, is it 100%? We did that. And then he asked me for a list of partners. And it's impossible for me to give a list because that's when I tell you I'd have multiple partners a day. 9, 12 partners a day. Okay, so no idea. No idea who it could be. And talk about causing harm to others. That's what I was doing. I was weaponizing, using a weapon, not a drug, but something that could still take somebody's life. And I drove home, and I got to my mom's, and I sat down, and I said, "Mom, I'm HIV positive." And she looked, and she was like such a great woman that she can compose herself really well. I just dropped this on her. And I looked at her, I said, "Mom, we have our whole life to cry and worry about this. But I want to take the step that we need to take here." And at that time, I grew up, again, in a small town, Steubenville, Ohio. You have WVU, Morgantown, West Virginia, which is a great medical facility there for infectious disease, but also in Pittsburgh at UPMC. They also have an amazing infectious disease team. And I opted that because it was closer. And the doctor to this day, I won't say her name, has become a very good friend of mine, has saved my life. And she looked at me and said, she comes in and, here comes a doctor. You're really nervous. They're educated and they're smart and they're judgy, right? And here comes this doc in that just plain as day. And she's like, I'm like, "What is your name? What do I call you?" She's, "Well, I'm doctor, whatever, but call me what you want." And I called her by her first name, and that bond happened. And she's like, "How do you feel about it?" I'm like, "I'm devastated." She's like, "Why? You had sex. Everyone has it. You're not a bad person. You just picked the wrong partner." And I was like, okay. And she was normalizing. And that's really what she was doing. Like, you're not a leopard, like you're a human being. Sex is part of life. And you got it, And at that time, the first, the meds for HIV have just been, men and women back in the day would carry Ziploc bags of meds, and they had to take them on time. And it was very rigid. And they were really just slowing your death. It's really what these people were doing. They were just, and the nurses there, they went through the whole AIDS thing. They watched the men come in and die, on them. And so she said, so the meds had just came out and they finally had 3 meds in one. And the drug was called a tripla. And it was like a breakthrough. So if you were going to become HIV positive, that's when the time was to be, because you now have one med that you can take. The challenge is with like so many meds is they're very hard on your liver, they're hard on your kidneys. So we got to a point in the HIV infectious disease world that it was no longer a death sentence. You could live a very normal life. And men and women today, we're living longer than ever. The baby boomers now, like we're in uncharted territory with these folks because we've not lived this long. And she's like, so you have 2 options. One was you can start meds immediately, or the other is you can start when you're no longer undetectable. And I looked at her and I said, what would you do? She goes, I do meds immediately. I don't think you should wait till you're no longer undetectable. You're currently undetectable, which is I carry the virus, but it's so small I cannot pass it to another human being. And that's why these meds are crucial. And you'll probably start hearing more and more about PrEP for younger adults that are sexually active. It really blocks the ability to catch HIV and from passing it. So these meds are great. I started taking the med. I tolerated it very well. And years later, we switched meds because you're careful switching meds because there are only so many. But here we are in 2023 going into 2024, and now that 3-pill cocktail has dropped to 2 for some. And now there's a shot that you can get. So the meds have come so far, but what UPMC, and I throw their name out there because, and I can get to that, UMBC, they did everything on one floor. You saw the social worker, you saw the case manager. They made sure you had everything you needed. Because when I came to Florida years later as a man, HIV and seeking recovery, it's a whole other beast here. It's not a worked out system. It's all pumped through a health department. So it's very broken. But the care, again, the care that I got from these people showed me how to accept it. Showed me how to accept being gay and that I'm not weak or broken. I'm a human. And that was really pivotal. And now, mind you, my family had no idea that I just came off of using crystal meth. They had no idea I'd been putting needles in my arm. They had no idea that I was living in bathhouses. That's me. I keep that stuff dark and shameful in a way. And, so obviously down the road, another relapse had happened. And this time my family knew, because I was very honest, And I remember telling her when my family wanted me to come to Florida, I'm like, I can't go to Florida. I need my meds. And she looked at me, the doc looks at me and says, Matt, HIV is not going to kill you. It never will. But the drugs are going to kill you. I'm okay if you miss your meds. I can fix that.
Wow.
And it was powerful. Because that was I can't go to treatment because you can only get these meds in Pittsburgh. Yeah. But she called me out on it. And I did. I came here. My family knew everything. My sister said to me, I love you, but you are not allowed around my kids. I don't want you in my kids' life until you can stay in their life permanently. And you better hope there's really a God because I'm done. And that hurt. That cut me. They've never been that way. Then my mom, who's always been my number one ride or die advocate, called me and had the same conversation. And so now we know as well that doesn't keep people sober. That doesn't make people get sober. But me, I wanted them. And I knew the way to them was becoming sober and staying sober.
What year was that?
So I came here in 2016. It was probably late 2015, early 2016.
And they were in Florida?
No, we were still in Ohio.
Okay.
We were in Ohio, but this relapse had happened and I had been taking care of my niece and nephew, and my nephew was a baby, and I'd passed out. My sister came home. So
no.
I'm endangering kids now,
Did you go to treatment at all prior to?
Never.
So are you a one and done too?
I am one and done.
Look at that, Ben.
So far, one and done. I didn't go to any fancy treatment center. I went to a place in Delray at the time. They're no longer here. Just did what they said. I never felt like a big breakthrough through in anything of this. And then it was time for aftercare, and they presented 2 places, and I picked the one, who are, this day, they're very near and dear to my heart. They did a lot for me, and I obviously did a lot for them. And I just, I got the sponsor like they told me to do. Went to a halfway house like they told me to do. I got a job at Home Depot on Linton. Thought I was like going to be the CEO. Learned more about nails than I cared. Yeah. But what's funny, what led me to my job was they were in there, the guys that ran the company, they were in there and they saw me how I was handling people and handling long lines, not losing my cool and just treating everyone like they're the only person. And that stuck to them. Like, this is someone we want to work for us because this is how we treat people.
Wait, hang on. Say that again?
So when I worked at Home Depot, I was substitute teaching. And the guys that owned the treatment center I went to, they would come in and buy stuff, but they would see how I'd handle customers. And they were impressed that you go to big retailers, you're not really,
right.
You don't get, it is what it is, it's volume, but not me. Like, I will treat you like you're the only customer in front of me, probably annoys the person behind them. But when you get to me, you're happy you got to me. And they saw that. They saw how I was treating people. And that made them eventually come up to me and ask if I'd ever want to work with them. And because they appreciated that customer service and attention to detail.
That's awesome.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it. It was a little job, and I could walk to it from my sober living. And, because I didn't have a car. I don't want to say I didn't have anything. I had a lot. I had a lot of love. I had a lot of support. I had a lot of ability. But like, my story is not the story that I got a car, I got a partner, and I bought a home. That's not my story by any means. And I never want that to be my story, because to me in this, we have suffered so long, but there has to be a value system and there has to be some kind of reward. My rewards have been small, but consistent. I didn't get anything too fast and I'm grateful. I mean, my first job was $10 an hour. My next one was 15, though 15 isn't anything exciting, but that, if you look at percentages, it is. And then that's been how my career has been. It's just been gradual. That's how my friends have been. That's how my relationship with my family has been. But, I look back now and I've maintained it. And because I'm the guy, I think if I got the car and everything at once, what is your purpose? Because my original sponsor said to me, be careful what you ask for in recovery because you'll get it. If you want money, you'll get it, but you're going to get everything else that comes with it. If you want a partner, you'll get it, but you also get everything that comes with it. But if you chase recovery, you'll get everything you're supposed to get when you're supposed to get it. And it's worked that way for me. It really has. And I cherish it. It may not look great to some people, but it's mine and I own it. So the HIV thing, back to that, I thought could have been a death sentence. And it still can be. If I choose not to take meds and put drugs in my body, that's probably what can happen. But we don't need to die. And I'm a very big advocate for HIV. I sit on a panel in Pittsburgh that I work with like first-year residents as they're looking at a field that they want to study. And we want these bright minds in infectious disease because we need them. And I get to give them that bedside classroom. And we talk about the bonding and not being judgmental and how to love patients, but keeping a boundary at the same time, because it is a different group of people. So I have taken the HIV thing that has been given, that I've given or whatever, however it is, and I accept it, but I'm an advocate for it. Like, before I would hide, I was gay, I hid. I was a drug addict, I hid. All these things that have happened, I put them out there because somebody needs to hear it. I thought men like you who fit the quote unquote masculine role looked at me like I was weak and broken. So in recovery, people are like, why don't you go to LGBTQ meetings? And I'm like, not that I have anything against them. I know, to me, that's not what a meeting is. It's, I don't want to drink. That's where I need to be. I don't care what the group looks like. But like, one of my best friends to this day, Paul, all the guys in my home were straight. And like, by living in a sober home that long, I realized I'm not broken. I'm not sick. like that. I'm just a guy that likes guys and you're guys that like girls, and there's no weirdness about it. I'm the one that's making it weird. Yeah. Not you. Nobody's ever like beat me up or bashed me or, caused me harm. I've caused all the harm because I thought or felt I was weak or broken, or how's God going to love me? I'm a gay man. It says it in that book that, I'm a sinner. I'm going to go to hell. That's a tough thing to swallow as a kid.
What a powerful message. You just said so much in such a short period of time. There's so much I could comment on. There's one thing I want to bring up. It validates. The other night, Tom and I, we did a Zoom with Love in the Trenches, a group of loved ones. Basically, it's a support group for addicts, loved ones who have addicts and alcoholics. And they were the topic was like, do I bring them home for Christmas? And you said something, and this validates our feedback, where you said your mom was your ride or die, but she drew a boundary with you and said, you can't come around until you're going to stay around.
Yep. And it took 2 years. I was sober 2 years before they invited me home.
And this is why I love sitting down with people, because we can say all this stuff, but when Matt tells his story, not even knowing what we talked about with other people just recently, it's literally more evidence, more proof that these principles, these ideas, they work.
They do. They're not broken. They're not outdated. They work. They're practical. They really are.
And it doesn't mean mom doesn't love you.
I knew she loved me because she would never have done that before, and she was out of options.
Hell yeah.
And I said that earlier, like when I got clean and sober, I had my 1, 2, and 3, what permits me to go get high. And it was my mom's death. That happens. I have the right to go get high. By the grace of God, she died January 4th will be 2 years. So luckily I had time to really work through this. But I'm telling you, there's 2 guys that had 90 days sober or clean, and they lost a parent, and they went home, handled business, and came back, never once getting high. And I'm like, you guys are at 90 days, less than 6 months, and this has happened, and you went, handled business, and came back? I can do this. And 2 years ago, I did it. And I went home, and it was the hardest thing ever. Like, she was there. She understood more than anyone could ask. But I believe in my heart that she knew she could pass. She was tired. My mom was pregnant at a young age, multiple kids. Like, life was rough for my mom. If anyone had a reason to be bitter, angry at the world, it was her, not my mom. She just rolls with it. And amazing. And she did die. And but what did I do? I went to a meeting. I flew out the next morning. I went to a meeting, and I go to this meeting. In this meeting, there's probably 500 years of sobriety, and people want to talk about these old alcoholics, how they're mean and angry. You're hanging out with the wrong old alcoholics, because this group is like, they're loving and they're accepting. And I go to the meeting, and like, they kind of knew my sponsor was there, and they're like, everyone else have anything to say? And there I am, crickets, nothing. And then they were like, sure, no one has anything? And I said, hi, I'm an alcoholic, and my name is Matt. Because I was always taught to introduce myself as an alcoholic first, because anything I put in front of it, no matter how much I love it, need it, or want it, alcohol will take it. So for me, it's important to say I'm the alcoholic first. Then I'm Matt. Because if I put Matt before alcohol, we know what happens. And I did, and I shared, and I said, but I've always heard people over the years say my parent died, and I went to the meeting, so I go, I guess I get to check that box. And the room laughed. And but I took that love when I flew into Pittsburgh the next day. And it was rough, because every time I would land, I'd call my mom. Just because they're dead, like, those behaviors are there. And it was funny. I got through security, and I flipped out because I couldn't find my phone, and the whole time it was on me. And I break down on these TSA agents. I'm like, oh my God, no, my mom just died and all this. And they're like, dude, we don't care. Just please leave. Yeah. So that death happened. And because of the willingness I've learned, when I got home, I jumped right into therapy. I found a grief therapist. This man is just absolutely amazing. And he's like, Matt, like, what's that, therapist? problem with dying is you're drowning and everyone's trying to tell you how to swim. And I go, you know what? That's how I feel right now. I feel like I'm drowning. Everyone's telling me it's going to be okay. It's never going to be the same. You're going to be all right. And, but I'm drowning. And he's like, I'm going to help you normalize death. Because it's part of life. None of us are escaping it. And what I learned from that was, now mind you, this year was 23 years ago. My dad has been gone. I came out in my 20s. I'm going to be 46. You know what I mean? So
You're going to be 46?
yes, drugs were good to me.
Sheesh.
I'm just joking.
I do think there is something, though, to meth. Meth users don't age as much as I think alcoholics. And like, it preserves
Actually,
you.
I disagree with that.
Well, I was told
heroin preserves you, meth ages you, but you're an anomaly.
but but I always said I shot mine because I didn't want to mess with my skin or teeth.
Touche.
I don't know if that has anything to do with it.
That makes perfect logical sense to another junkie.
Yeah, I mean, but not to the kids at school you're trying to tell not to use drugs, right? We did this thing, and I told him, I'm like, I don't know where I'm with my dad. My dad never knew I was gay. I hid it. Ironically, not the day he died, but right when he was dying, I came out. You know, it's like liberation, you know, like Castro is gone. But it didn't hit me like this. Did I even do it right? Did I mourn it right? All this stuff. And he did this thing, and he's like, I want you to picture your mom and just wish her well. Wish her well. Mom, I wish you well. I wish you good health. And then he said, and this is the abbreviated version, then he said to me, picture someone you know, you just say hi when you walk by, you really don't know them. And I pictured like people that live in my building and wish them well, same thing. And then my dad, he's like, I want you to do the same thing. Wish your dad well. We did this. And he kind of brings me back out of it. And he's like, what did you feel? And I go, honestly, you want me to be honest with you? And he's like, yeah. I felt nothing. I didn't feel any difference. And he says, in my mind, it's because you're at the same place with both their deaths. So to quit beating yourself up about your dad. Doesn't mean you loved one more than the other or anything like that. And that made sense. But I tell you the belief system I gained, and I tell people this, and until you lose a parent, I hope this is your experience. You guys are parents?
Yes.
You know how you see stuff in your kids, or your parents did you, and you're like, Mom, that's not true, or Mom, stop it. Those beliefs that my mom had in me passed to me when she died. My self-esteem improved. Things started, my outlook even improved. And I feel like a lot of it's spiritual, but I feel like I also now believe what she saw in me and why she hung on like she did. And, and that was a gift. And that's what I said. She was so selfless. With her death, she gave me stuff. Even on her deathbed. And it's the hardest thing I went through. My siblings too. But I came out, better. But also realization too. Like, Mom's there. Mom can fix anything. My parents are gone now. It's me. But I've gained the skills and the tools and the things that I've needed to live the life that I've built today. And I think it's because the recovery has been gradual.
I say that to parents all the time. And because Tom and I see this, I'll be straight up with you. Sometimes we get a 55, 60-year-old in treatment and their 90-year-old mom is still taking care of them. Huh. And I like what you just said about, like, she, in essence, taught you how to be a man.
She taught me how to be a man. Because I had my dad's vision, angry, temperament.
And she's not here, but you know how to take care of yourself now. And literally, and I'm bringing this up because codependency can literally, like, you want your kid to be ready for the day that you're not there anymore.
She did that.
And I see parents not do that. And then they got a man-child, if you will.
Yep.
At 6 years old, has no idea how to do anything for
None
themselves.
At all. People think it's like our 20-year-olds that we see and we treat, 22. That's somewhat understandable. But no, I've seen it with men that are 50s, 60s that...
Mom's still making their car payment.
Mom?
We literally had this 6 months ago. Mm-hmm. This guy's like in his 50s, and Mom has made every car payment his entire life. He didn't even know how to fill it out.
I had a guy before, I had to help him do a return label and pack up a box. Like, I went downstairs and he was using Scotch tape to box a box that he's going to mail. And I'm like, man, what do you do? And he's like, what you told me to tape it. And I'm like, let me show you. Like, literally, I'm not making this up. Like, I'm like,
yeah,
dumbfounded.
No. And so I want parents to hear that message, right?
I hope they do.
You got to nudge them out of the nest at some point. And while it's scary for a parent, especially with the drug addicted son or daughter, but at the end of the day, like, you can't deny them their experience, and it's the best chance at their success.
It is. And like mom and dad, I would also say to them is, you're doing this for you. This is your purpose.
Thank you.
You're not, something's going to happen. How is your son going to be? Or you don't care because you're not here.
Ooh.
And you really, we all cards on the table. Your son is a grown man. He's not far from death. And at this age, he's probably also facing other chronic problems from the years of use. Like, or mom and dad are trying to take care of their aging health. Like, it's just, you have to let, like, mom and dad have to understand. And I've told this to parents many times. I go, I don't know what's going to happen to your kid, if they're going to live or not. But what is going to happen to you two? Because you two still have a marriage. If this kid's addiction is what your marriage is, you got bigger problems than you think you do. Because it can't be your primary purpose. Like, you got to look out for yourself sometimes. And I'm not a parent, so it's probably very easy for me to say that.
No, but it goes back to what I was saying earlier. These principles, they work.
They work.
Yeah, and again, like, maybe not your story, but we've had tons of people on the podcast who do have that story that validate what you're talking about.
100%.
We don't have to reinvent the wheel.
We don't.
It's scary to do these things, and I don't want to deny that. Because, and we talk about that, it goes against thousands of years of evolution. Mama bear is supposed to take care of the cubs.
Yep.
You know, but at the end of the day,
we weren't dealing with
drug
fentanyl epidemic,
correct,
mental health epidemic, marijuana that is just not marijuana that you got in high school, which was brown and seedy. Like, drugs are on a whole new level of death. And so it's like we have a shorter window, I feel like, to get the parents to understand this, because they're the enablers.
I don't mean to be that guy, but I know you said you had to be somewhere.
No,
at
I pushed. We're good. We're totally
sweet.
good. Yeah.
I want to bring something up that you said about the parents and not being a parent, what Ben and I are, but anytime you talk to couples that have successful marriages, or if you talk to like marriage counselors and, you know, stuff along those lines, there's one thing that they tell that is commonly known amongst married couples that have children. And it is, what comes first? And it's always your marriage.
Always.
It
like
comes
alcohol.
before your children. It comes before everything. You know, because if you as a married couple aren't healthy, then it trickles down to everybody else. And that's where we see with addicts and alcoholics, you know, and the parents, what ultimately happens is it's no longer about their marriage. It's no longer about them as a married couple. It's about their son or daughter that's using drugs or drinking. And that tears marriages apart.
It's the new empty nester.
Yeah.
You know, and you look at it like, and I get it, your job is to cultivate love and health and produce beautiful kids and better them, right? And it becomes the focus, right? Like, but like that relationships, and I'm not in a relationship, right? But I know that relationship, those kids are going to leave. Where's the marriage?
Yeah.
You know, then you look at an older couple at dinner. There's no real conversation.
Me and my wife point that out all the time. And, you know, that's one thing that I feel like we're doing a lot of things right. And one of them is when we're out, and I got 3 kids, 7, 5, and 4.
Oh, wow.
So imagine going to a restaurant with 3 kids. We'll go to a restaurant and see the kid, you know, families with 2, 3 kids or whatever. And every single one of them are on iPads and iPhones. Every one. We don't take them in the restaurant, you know? And if I have my phone on me, if it's just me and my wife, we go to dinner or whatever, I never leave my phone in the car because that's asking a little too much.
Yeah. Well, in today's age too.
But I do put it face down and I turn the ringer off, and it's like, I don't need this right now, you know. But it's sad when you see
it is,
you know, these
that
kids.
makes me feel special though.
What?
Tom always answers my call.
Do I?
he's just not eating.
He'll at least give me the hey, I'm at dinner.
Yeah.
Let me call you.
But
back.
it is hard. I will tell you, like even when I was in the classroom, like in my classroom was a no cell phone room. You dock your phone. If your phone's not docked, you're marked absent. You know, you want to talk about getting a parent's attention. Or then like they would even fight with me. Well, how am I supposed to get a hold of my kid? I go the same way. You call the school, that big box on the wall, they'll tell me.
Oh, you mean when you were substitute teaching?
Yeah, and then ended up teaching full time and everything. But like I had a gridlock with kids. Like they would stand in my doorway, and I had seniors. They were like, they're done anyways. And I would like, please just trust me on this. I promise you, this 90 minutes will be your favorite class. You're going to get your work done, and there's rewards. And they did. Like it was rough. Parents would fight or call me and bite. I'm like, you signed the syllabus, you know. And they're like, well, we didn't read it. And I go, well, you should read everything before you sign it because you just accepted terms and conditions. And I was the teacher, like, I don't need you, mom and dad. I need your kid. Let me work it out. Let us work it out, right? Let's teach this kid that mom and dad don't have to put out the fire. You and I can collectively come together. And they hated the phone. But I tell you what, a month into that class, they were happy. Their work was done on time. And they would say, Mister, can I get my phone? Billy, absolutely. Good job today. Like they worked for it and they appreciated it, but it was hard because a lot of people, and I think educators too, is they get so much resistance, they give up. I'm a drug addict, so you know me, I'm going to hang in there and dig in to the bitter end. And ultimately, my students did better. And I see these kids around Delray and Boynton and Lake Worth.
I was going to ask, when were you teaching?
When I 2000. Early 2018 is when I got into the classroom. I was still working at my other job.
What were you teaching?
12th grade English. So
oh, really?
I had all high risk kids that were not graduation ready for many reasons, and everyone always thinks it's a behavior.
Did you say high risk?
High risk. So kids that were immigrants or English the second language, or some delayed learning, but they, for all sake and purposes, they've gone to school for 12 years, pretty good kids. They just learn different. And so my job was to get their reading and writing score up high enough that they could get a percentage and then get their diploma. And my last year was 74 kids were not ready, and 72 of them graduated.
That's fantastic.
Because they're used to people giving up on them. Mm-hmm. And again, me being a drug addict, I wasn't going to give up because I know that feeling. And luckily, I had good teachers.
That's what I talk about that all the time. Being a drug addict and an alcoholic is a superpower.
It is a superpower.
You just have to learn how to harness it and use it properly.
It's my greatest. It's one of my greatest gifts.
I want to pivot. I want to talk more about Lakeview.
Okay.
Just because I'm alumni, Ben.
Touche.
We appreciate that.
And it's so I was there to visit. Went with Destiny. I think it was April of last year. Mm-hmm. And I tell you what, man, that place is beautiful. Ben, have you been there?
No.
Ben, guess where you're going in March?
Yeah, you're coming in March.
All expense
dude.
paid trip to Jacksonville, Florida.
Nice.
All expense paid. You heard it.
All right.
All the Diet Coke you can drink. And you ain't going to be on this stupid diet either. You could actually eat.
Yeah.
You know?
We eat in
unless you
Texas.
pick something else, some other show that you're going to do. Don't do that.
What if I could get my pro card, Tom?
So what? Pro for what? Whatever. Anyways.
Different show.
Different time. Different show.
All right. We'll hash it out later.
I wonder who wins.
It's a great facility. I mean, it's huge. So talk a little bit about like, what was your draw to go there? Because you obviously went from being a teacher into substance abuse.
So I, the aftercare program I went to, I ran into one of the owners. It was funny. I was on Federal and Boca going to the Walmart grocery store, and it was summer break was just starting. And, I had to have 2 jobs. You know what I mean? I had to work in the evenings. It just is what it is, especially being in Florida. And I ran into him and he's like, what are you doing this summer? And I'm like, yeah, it's vacation and yada, yada, and all that. And he's like, why don't you come back for the alumni? And I said, I need to get back to the alumni. I need to give back and meet. And because the reason it was so special to me, I'll tell you this real quick, was I was working 2 jobs because I had to Uber to school. So I spent like $60 a day Ubering. And I was living in a sober living, and it was funny. My students were like, Mister, what are you doing? It's Friday. And I'm like, well, yeah, I'll probably be home around 11. They're like, why so early? I'm like, Mister's tired. Like, meanwhile, I'm like, no, I live in a sober home. I have a curfew. Like, we don't tell the young youth of America this. But this neighbor that lived 2 doors down, his name is Miguel. We'd always talk to him because I was walking everywhere. I didn't have a bike, We'd always talk. And then he went basically had a car that he went through a divorce. They were supposed to take it and they didn't. He just wanted the car gone. And I was like, he's like, why don't you drive the car? So I drove it and basically wanted me to buy the car. And like, yeah, that's great, man. But, nobody's giving me, I don't have anything, you know what I mean? Like I have my shoes and, I'm just starting out at life. And he's like, what about your family? And I'm like, absolutely not. I'm not even going to go there. It's not appropriate for me to ask. It's not appropriate for me to ask anyone. I did this. I can do this. And he said, do you believe in God? And I said, I do. And I'm really in the process of developing a good relationship with God. Like I'm very heavy in the morning out of bed on your knees. At that time, my sponsor had me inviting God in every time I walk through a doorway. I'm like, how do you remember God? He's like, every time you walk through a doorway, invite God with you. And he was trying to help me just put God in front. And he said, I said, yeah. And he's like, well, then good. If you believe in God, this is going to happen. That's daring. And I remember learning how to pray. Like, God, give me the house, the job. No. God, what do you have me do today? How can I be of service to others? And so my prayers would look like, hey, God, if you may help make this happen, I will drive to school in the morning and I will teach the kids the best in my ability. And in the evenings, I will fill this car with alcoholics and take them to meetings. And I did. I bought all these big books. My trunk was full of big books. And I would go to this treatment center. I went and I'd pick the guys up and take them to meetings and read with them. And was what I asked for. So ultimately this happened and I got this car and because of him, and he took a risk because, to let somebody drive a car and carry their own insurance was a risk to him. And he said, I always knew you would do it. And I am happy to report on this, that this was a Toyota Corolla 2016. Took good care of it. Late a year ago, I don't know, around fall, I put all new tires on this car, had it all redone, and I shipped it home to my mom. And when I went home, you're the son that lives in South Florida that bought her a new car? And I'm like, some of that's true. But it's not a new car, it's a used car. But she was so proud. I got to a point I could give to my mom. I've never been able to do that. A woman who's never asked for anything or never would. And she was so proud of that. But I was able to do that because of being honest, being sober, developing a relationship with God, and just trying to be a better human. And when I failed, and I failed a lot, it's not beating myself up, just beating myself up over it. You know. So the teaching was a big part. So they asked me to work, and I didn't catch what they were telling me, and I'm like, oh no, man, no, I don't want to work. You know what I mean? I just want to teach and go home. And he's like, why don't you come check it out? It wasn't dawning on me. He was offering me a job. And I went in and met them, and they were really good to me. And they said, Matt, what do you make as a teacher? And I told him, and the owner said, I've always wanted to help a teacher. I'm going to give you that if you work here in the evenings. I'm like, okay.
On top of your teaching?
Yes.
Wow. So you doubled your income.
I doubled my income. Yeah.
That's legit.
Now, slow down, guys. It was a double income.
You're talking about percentages earlier.
But percentages, yeah.
Percentages.
And it came at the right time because that first studio I lived in, it was $700 a month. That was perfect for me. They sold it. So now I had to spend more money. I'm like, I don't have this money. And then, again, it worked out. That's been my experience with this. And the car, I had the place, still working, and I did. I accepted the job, and I loved it. And then they asked me if I wanted to work more. But at first, they're like, "Okay, 5 days a week from this time." And I'm like, "No, no, no, no. I'm not working 5 days. No, not at all." And they did. They worked it out with me. I worked 3 days, and I loved it. I built an alumni program that represented everyone, not just the mass. Like I wanted everyone to have. I took some principles out of AA. This is your alumni. What do you want from it? You tell me what you want. Let me see if I can make it happen. And it was a welcoming alumni, and I truly fell in love with it, and I got more and more interested in what we do, and somewhere my classroom just shifted to helping people that I can relate to more in recovery, and I fell in love with it. I fell in love with helping people and learning more, but also learning how to not just want to help people that work a program. I didn't have to. Somebody I respect a lot said, "Do you want to help everyone or just a certain few?" So I'd like to help everyone. He's like, "Well, you have to understand, not everyone's going to go a 12-step route. It would be great if they did because it works, but they're not. And if you want to help everyone, you got to kind of open your mind a little and kind of meet them where they're at." And that was a lot for me because I don't want to say AA was easy, but when I was ready to get sober, I got sober. I did what the sponsor said. Now, working my steps was great. I never felt, people are like, "Oh, I felt this and I felt that." The only thing I will tell you I felt was I finally did something the right way, the way it was asked of me. That was my breakaway. That was my I finally did this. I didn't cheat it. I didn't do it for anyone else. I was honest through it. And you don't get an award at the end, right? Like you don't complete Alcoholics Anonymous or Narcotics Anonymous and they give you a certificate. They're just happy you're there. And I went to mostly men meetings, and there was a lot through that. I had to talk to people, I had men tell me, "Well, why don't you have a woman sponsor?" And I'm like, "Why would I?" Again, I don't. If that's you, have an opposite sex sponsor, I'm cool with it. No opinion. But somebody said to me that they disagreed with it because even though identifying as a gay man, I still have male hormones. I still think like a man. A man needs to help me through that can relate. And I didn't realize at the same time what AA was giving was acceptance of self and being gay. And slowly that gay thing became so small, it doesn't even matter. We're very big people. It makes a very small part of me, but I accept it. I'm not ashamed of it. Like alcohol and drugs.
Well, it's even like what you said, the identifying as a gay man. I'm not gay. I don't know what it's like to be gay, but to me, it's something like I like girls, you like guys.
That's it.
Big friggin' deal.
Yep.
Now,
that's where I'm at with it.
The identifying as a gay man. Let me ask you this. When I hear somebody say, "I identify as a gay man," or "I identify as LGBTQ," whatever the case, do you think, and I don't know this answer, I'm just curious, do you feel like by saying you have to identify as a gay man, it's like, I feel like you're in a position now where being gay, that's not your identity. You're just a person. You're a guy and you choose to like guys. You saying that I identify as a gay man, that gives out a lot of power almost, or it's something that does that make sense?
Yeah. To me, it's it's important. And I don't run, you guys know me, I mean, how have we ever really talked about this? But for me, it's I accept my identity and I'm proud of my identity. No different than I'm an alcoholic. I accept it and I'm proud of it. Now, do we need to lead the way with it? No. But I feel sometimes too, I'm coming into this late. You know what I mean? I'm going to be 46. I didn't come out to my early 20s. there's been a lot of acceptance along the way for it. But it's again, it's like you're a father, right? Like it's part of your identity, but you don't really.
I don't identify as a father. Yeah. No, I like what you said there. I don't lead the way with it.
Yeah. It's like I'm proud, especially sitting around two men that are, whatever. Like I can say that because I was the guy that would tell you it's him. Yeah. And I would make you believe that he was the weak one. Now I get to say here proudly that I am and not worry what your reactions would be. I also grew up during Matthew Shepard. I don't even remember the story about Matthew Shepard. That was like the fear then.
What is that?
They tied him to a fence, right?
They tied him to a fence, and they got him he was in a bar. They came on to him. He thought he was going to get lucky with these guys. They basically take him out, tie him to a fence, and beat him to death and let him there to die.
When was this?
Oh God, late 90s, 2000s. I don't know really it's a wonderful, very powerful story. His mom turned it into good. It's also like, here's an example. I don't know if you guys have heard of the Ryan White Act. And Ryan White was a young kid that became HIV positive due to a blood transfusion when that could happen. At this time, AIDS is happening. And the whole AIDS thing is happening. And the government needed to do something. Nancy Reagan, all these people wanted to do something, but it's for gay men. Ryan White, this young kid, comes around. He ends up HIV positive. He becomes the poster child because he's the first person that's is not a gay kid, a gay man, who got this by no act of his own. So it paved this way for, oh my God, we have a poster child that everyone can accept. And because of him, there's a lot of cool programs called the Ryan White, which is a federal program that what we know with HIV is this. If we take meds, we live lives. So the Ryan White Act gives people access to these meds and care because the government has learned that if we keep them on their meds, and these meds are expensive, 30 days, $9,000, these meds, but because of the Ryan White Act, they have to cut the prices. Like it's just the government setup because they know if we can give everyone access to HIV meds, they live a normal life. They don't become dependent on the system because they're not going on disability. They're not going on all of that. We can live normal lives. And that's because of the Ryan White, this kid that ultimately died of HIV. Because
he died?
He died, yeah. I mean, this is late 80s. Yeah.
Okay, so it was just real. I remember as far as HIV, I remember, Magic Johnson was like the guy that really.
Yep, he was on, he took, everyone's like, it's a money, he's a millionaire. No, he took a triple. He took the same med that I had, and these meds are great, And
he's still, you see him now, he
looks great.
Yeah, you can't. Mm-hmm. I lived with a guy I was probably, 1 year or 2 years of sobriety. I lived with a guy for probably 2 years, and he was HIV positive, gay guy. I never even knew he was gay.
Yeah, people would always say that about me.
Dude had a Harley and everything, and I'm like, and one day I find out he's gay, and then shortly after I find out he's HIV positive. Yeah. But you know what?
Imagine being your son finding this all out like that.
Yeah. You know what was I feel kind of dumb saying this, but, and I think it goes to show the amount of, it's easy to draw a not a conclusion, but an assumption or have, some sort of belief around something. When I found out he was HIV positive and I was living with him, I'm like, oh man. Yeah. Okay, how do I navigate this?
That's fair.
You know what I mean?
That's very fair.
And so then him and I started having conversations about it, and I was just honest with him. I'm like, what would happen if you used my toothbrush, or if we sat on the same toilet together and you peed on the seat, and I these are the kind of conversations.
Well, they're fair, right? Those are very fair questions. It doesn't make you ignorant or homophobic. These are fair questions. They need to be answered, especially when in anything sharing a space. There is a risk, but it's
very minute,
especially if they're undetectable. But a toothbrush, no. A toilet seat, no. My blood into your blood,
right?
Probable. Yeah. Those are the things. Frankly, couples that are HIV positive have kids now, and it's not passed because of the meds. Like, we've learned a lot. Like, I will tell you, it was the hope with COVID that I had. I don't want to go down this rabbit hole. Is the reason HIV is where it is today is because the education. We're educating people. We're learning more. Your questions are not offensive. We have to get that out. You know, and I was really hoping the whole COVID thing, through proper education, it could have led to what the HIV thing is, you know, because it's not scary. But how many men I've sponsored that have the HIV, even men that identify as straight, and it's just really telling them the same thing the doctor told me. It's not going to kill you. The needle is.
You keep using the term normalize because you just brought up sponsorship. You keep using the word normalize throughout the podcast, and I'm glad you've been just so straightforward, and you said there's no questions that are like offensive, so to speak. And I wanted to, from my perspective, like, I sponsor a lot of gay men.
Yeah.
Like, people actually kind of tease me about it. Like, you got to be over the age of 50 and gay for Ben to sponsor you. Like, it's like a thing.
I got 4 years then,
I've
Ben.
never heard that.
4
Oh,
years.
dude, I get
4 more years, you can have Ben.
I get razzed all the time for it. Like, it just is what it is. I sponsor older men that are gay all the time. I want to throw it out there from my perspective. In no way, shape, or form does it change the experience with working 12 steps with them.
It shouldn't.
And I think for me, and I bring that up because I just want to be straight honest, is like, a lot of times when we get someone that identifies as part of the LGBTQ community, they have a tendency, and this is just my experience, to give me reasons why they're different and why you brought up earlier men with men, women with women as far as sponsorship. And I'm along those same lines too. I'm not going to judge somebody if they do something different than me. Like, it's none of my business. But at the end of the thing that I want to hit home is to get rid of these preconceived notions that you know what you need.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it's me sponsoring someone that's gay, even though I'm not gay, because I'll hear that sometimes where we'll have a client here and I need a sponsor that's also gay.
I challenge it every time. You know how to be gay. I don't know how to be sober.
That's good.
Oh, yeah, that's
I mean,
good,
it's the truth.
Yeah.
I know how to be gay. I practiced that really well.
And so I'm bringing this up honestly because that helps me navigate it. And that, like, I'm getting education right now from you on how to.
So you got to say that to them?
Hell yeah, I'm
You
gonna
know how
say
to be
that.
gay, dude.
Yeah.
You don't need me to teach you how to be gay. You already know that part. I'm here to teach you how to be sober.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, it's weird because, again, I've sponsored mostly straight men. And there was a guy, and I caught feelings. I called my sponsor. Like, whoa, I go, he's like, okay, let's unpack this, you know. And he's like, can you sponsor this man and not cause him harm? I said, absolutely. He goes, do you have a plan to act on? And I said, absolutely not. That's why I'm calling you. And he said, you're not responsible for who you like or what you're attracted to. You're responsible for what you do with it.
Thank you.
And this guy asked me, and I said, yeah, I'm going to be honest. Like, I got a little feeling here for you. And he's like, I thought so. And I'm like, but do you feel safe? He's like, I feel safe if you feel safe. I go, no, this has nothing to do with me. He's like, I 100% trust you. And I've been to it was his wedding. He's been sober a long time now. And it was hard. I got to work through that with him and with my sponsor, because I was like, whoa, what's happening? You know, what's happening here? The last thing I want to do is cause harm, because that could send somebody's headed south quick. You know, and we have that responsibility to the people that we're trying to assist. And but again, he taught me a lot about myself. You know, like the guys that had 90 days and lost their parent. I learned, like, it's wild, right? Like, sometimes I'm like, aren't I supposed to be showing you things? And I'm learning more from you. Right. And that's what it gives me.
I want to ask your perspective on something, and this is serious.
We got to wrap this up. Last question.
This is for me.
Oh, can it be continued? Can we come back?
Oh, absolutely. We've touched on so much good stuff. Yeah, we have to have you back on. I want your perspective for myself, selfishly. So a lot of times I see the LGBTQ community, they'll say, like when they come through here, that, oh, we want to be accepted. There's a big movement to be accepted. And I don't judge already, so I'm like, okay, that means nothing to me. But okay, I accept your thoughts, if you will. But then at the same time, like, oh, we want to separate ourselves for treatment. And I understand that maybe like as a starting point, yes, because maybe there's some stuff there. But I feel like in a way it gets used both ways.
I think it becomes
at
an
convenience.
excuse.
Thank you. Yeah, that's
Because
what's my.
I'll say this. I hate groups. I understand why we started groups to help people have communities have an identity. But we've created so many different groups. We've separated ourselves from society further.
When you say group, initially I thought you meant like group setting therapy.
No,
you mean
like LGBTQ group or this group or that group. I don't need to name them all. And I understand why we do that. We want to create identity or whatever. But it's caused more segregation.
Yeah.
We're farther removed. And
tribes.
Instead of bringing us together, now we have all these pockets of tribes that, oh, you're in that tribe, I can't communicate with you. No, that's the opposite of what should have happened. And on the gay thing about being accepted, like in pride and all this, I'm like, I don't need any of that. I'm a proud gay man. I go to work. I pay taxes. I show up when I'm asked to show up. My identity as being a gay man is trying to be a better man today than I was yesterday. Nothing else. I don't need anything else because I'm no different than you.
So being Ben, the manipulator, the drug addict, alcoholic, especially in early recovery, I'm going to use whatever I can.
Manipulation.
It's manipulation, exactly. And
that's why a lot of times I don't think a lot of gay men have stuck with me as a sponsor because that's just how I am. Like, let's just call it what it is.
That's healthy.
Yeah. You still think you're a unique snowflake and you're not. You know what I mean? Yeah. And if you don't know, all snowflakes are like fingerprints. They're all different. But you're not. Like, and as soon as you can accept that, the better your recovery is going to be. It has nothing to do with who we like or what we sleep with. And I get it. We all had that. Like, if that's your objection, but let's be honest about your objection. You know, I've never seen it work. And what I've seen about LGBTQ meetings was it became the new bar of hooking up. Yeah. Like the co-ed straight meetings or whatever you want to call, right? Like the Central House 8:00. You know that? Yeah. But like, to me, like, that's not what I want. Like, that's the stuff I'm trying to get away from and change in my life. Like, I just want to be Matt Martin.
Yeah, in conclusion, going back to like me sponsoring gay men,
that's a good perspective.
It gets mentioned like maybe once or twice. It has nothing to do with it.
Has nothing to do with it. And I've sponsored many straight men that it's coming up in the inventory and we talk through it. And like, my perspective, you know, we're sick, we're broken, we do what we do. It's not who we are. That's how we know we're sick. And like, I've had to reassure many men. I'm like, if you are, it's cool. But from what you're showing me is you had a moment. Moments are okay, but it's not your identity. Yeah. You know, you just don't have to be ashamed of.
We've all done things that we're ashamed of at some point.
Absolutely.
My 4-step, 5-step inventory.
Yeah.
There's things that I was ashamed of.
Yep.
Point blank, period.
But
and I don't care what you identify as.
Me either.
You're a human being. You've done things you're not proud of.
Yep. And what are you doing today with it?
Exactly.
Like, what are you doing for the world today? Like, that's how I judge people. Every time you're here at Rock Recovery, you see it. It's like you say, you do what you're good at here. You're not something you're not. And you see it in the care. You see it in the employees. You see how you open the doors. That's who you guys are. You're not about looking what we were. You're looking at what we're trying to be. And your job is to try to help us get there.
Yeah.
And that's what we're really doing here. So.
Well, that was fun.
You know what? This is a closing statement. Don't worry, Tom. I know you said we had to wrap up. I've sat down with Matt multiple times, and this is what I love about doing like the podcast and working in this field, like getting deep into this stuff. How many times have we sat down together and had
many times,
hours of conversations?
Yeah,
and I learned so much about you today, and it's an honor to get to meet people on this level.
I feel that about you guys, and I think the world really needs to take a chapter out of our book that we try to live on, is let's sit down, let's put the most non-connectable people and common people together, and let's create a conversation. Not to change minds, just to be heard, because
we
all just want to be heard.
It'd be nice if our if Congress could do that.
That's where I was thinking. Yeah. Well, back in the day, you wanted that. You wanted to work together. Today, it's like, you what? You went over there, you're done.
Yeah,
like,
no, can't have that.
We're such a kill-off society. Like, if you... Wait, you're going against us? Our group?
Yeah.
You're done.
Well, they're eating themselves from the inside out. You know, it's disgusting.
It's sad. But that's why we need to get some recovered folks into Washington.
It's like that meme, and this isn't my perspective. I'm referring to the meme. It's like, what? I want to carry a gun and smoke weed at my gay friend's wedding. What? You know what I mean? Like,
everyone has a problem with something until it's somebody they know. And I have a lot of friends from all over the country, all over the world that probably where they're from wouldn't really connect. But he's different here. But they're different.
Yeah.
No, they're not different. That's just how it is. You're just willing to meet them and know them.
Yeah.
I think, again, it comes down to we all just want to be loved.
Yep.
That's all we're trying to do is get some love.
Beautiful.
Guys, I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks, Matt.
Let me know when I can come back.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Whenever, dude.
I've missed you guys.
Open door.
I really
door.
have.
Yeah, I got you.
It's these things that, remind me of what we do.
Yeah.
And we get to have fun along the way. Recovery doesn't have to be sad. There's sadness to it. It should be fun.
Yeah.
Like I tell people all the time, and I'll stop here, is if I didn't enjoy this, I would have a needle in my arm. And I tell that to parents. I tell that to anyone asking, because that's the truth.
Amen. I told our clients that the other night.
I mean,
Yep. I'd be sitting at a bar.
yeah.
Yeah.
I love shooting heroin.
Me.
I love Jim Beam.
But
I love them all.
it's the truth.
It's the truth.
There's way more I could elaborate on. Please don't take that and cut that as a clip.
Here we go.
Yeah.
Guys, thanks for the invitation. Merry Christmas to all of you.
You too. Ben, you good?
Yes, sir.
All right. That is it for this episode of Real Recovery Talk. Thank you for tuning in. In the end, if you have any comments, questions, or concerns, you could always reach us info@realrecoverytalk.com. I almost messed up there, Ben. info@realrecoverytalk.com. Ultimately, we want to help you turn your mess into your message. That is it. We will see y'all later.